Good eatings and salutations, Internetizens. Today, Wotc, and here we go with another delightful video. This time, it's me unboxing the D&D Monster cards, Volo's Guide to Monsters. This is a delightful deck produced by Gale Force 9. It contains the old stats. It's from Volo's Guide to Monsters, which is superior to Mordenkainen presents the Monsters of the Multiverse of Madness. You know, in this deck, there is these two sets of there's these two decks in this set of box. I pull them out. There is the standard size cards, and then there's the big cards, but not the giganto cards. So, in other words, we get some delightful critters. I pull off the little sheet, and we happen to have a Ketobleepus. This, the Death Moo, as my party would like to call it. On the card, you have a delightful piece of artwork. Yeah. You got to believe us? You typically will have the name of artist down here, but for whatever reason, they seem to have skimmed out on that in this set. So, that's actually a weird thing. All the other sets, the regular challenge ones, so like challenge 0 to 6, 0 to 5, 6 to 16, and the Epic Monster cards typically will always have the artist down here, but they didn't do that with these. So you have a nice variety of critters from Volo's Guide to Monsters. You have Mr. Ketobleepus, as I said before. On the back of the card, you have just the core information, the name, and the little red strip under there, the type of creature it is, and its natural typical alignment. And then you have its standard stats, its strengths, weaknesses, resistances, immunities, and various skill proficiencies. And then down here you have its actions. Right here you got the challenge rating as well as the experience, and it also states that it is from Volo's Guide to Monsters, as well as the little trademark mark right here. So that's the standard setup for these cards. These small cards are typically for more or less the standard bruisers or the 1 or 2 trick pony monsters. Creatures that don't have very many actions or a ton of resistance or spell casting. You got a nice variety. You got cranium rats. You got a darkling. You got a darkling elder. You got a maw demon. Shuvzeva. I'm not going to show 100% of all the cards, or even bother trying to pronounce all their names. Drigolath. Fire Newt Warrior. Giant Instrider. Some of them are in landscape, some of them are not, but the backside is always in vertical format. Just keep that in mind. And this is like a sad moment. Fire Newt Warrior, or Fire Newt Warlock of IMAX. No artwork. Some of these decks have a lot of that, and some of these decks don't. To see which decks that do not or do have a lot of oops, we didn't bother getting more artwork for this creature, and the frequency in which that occurs, go ahead and watch the videos, as I will oftentimes point it out how frequently it happens in the video. No Witherling. I remember the time I destroyed 12 of these suckers in one shot with my Twilight Domain Cleric. That was an epic moment. And then the last Knoll Warrior was trying to beat me up, and like I Kali mod his heart out of his chest. Yes, indeed. I used inflict wounds, and I described to the DM as the DM told me, okay, how are you going to do this? And I said I thrust my hand into his chest, rotting a hole into it, and I rip his heart out. So, Neogi Hatchling, Orc of Ednevele. Most of these do have artwork. Orc of Luthic. They usually try to grab them out of the official book or out of an adventure that is the most appropriate one possible. Orc Nurtured One of Eurytus, or a Taruk, a Quickling, a Red Cap, a Vegapygmy, a Thorny with a Vegapygmy, Exvort, Warlock of Razorvolt, Yuan-ti Broodguard. That is the small dick. So far, we've only come across a few of those cards that are... Now, this is the big card. That's the regular size card. Size comparison. A Banderhobb. Now, for these cards, on the back side, it's actually it's effectively two cards set next to each other, as you can see. You have all the standard information down this side. It goes into actions and it repeats onto this side. Still same standard format across the bottom. So there you go. And then you go into a Begast. And that's actually one of those weird, Begast, one of the weird moments where they took the name and instead of being in the center, they took it and put it on the corner. So, and you'll notice they won't do that terribly often. A Giza, a Babadook. Weirdly enough, in this set they actually do that. And it's kind of weird. Cranium Rat Swarm. Difference between the regular one is there's a few extra actions stacked on the back, because when you have cranium rats in swarm, they become more dangerous and they become more intelligent. Cranium rats basically are a hive mind of rats. So whenever you run cranium rats, you want to play them proportional to the number of cranium rats. If there's literally just one cranium rat, they're basically just like an explosive regular rat. However, as you increase them, you want to treat them as if they are more intelligent. They will form motions. If you get enough of them, they will actually climb on each other to make semi-humanoid forms and use more adept tactics to deal with their threats as they gain intelligence from being in a swarm. We're into the fun exotic giant territory. Mouth of Glorantha. And then you have a new Knoll, a Fleend. In the epic one, in the past sets, the name was always in the center. I kind of find it odd. that they actually push it over to the corner. Grung. Some more grung. A Burhag. A Hobgoblin Devastator. Hobgoblin Iron Shadow. Kobold Dragon Shield. And now here's a Kobold Inventor. This is actually something that very rarely comes up with these cards, is that they will, as you can see, there's so many features on this Kobold Inventor. It runs over to here, completely runs down here, and then it basically says continue and goes on to the front side and goes down. Kobolds are crafty little ones. Kobold Scale Sorcerer. A Korrid. A Youth Crota. Go ahead and make fun of my pronunciation. This is a long lack. A Mind Witness. Neogi, adult one. A Nilbog. Orc Red Fang of Scarglass Gas. A Sea Spawn. Shadow Mastiff. A Slithering Tracker. Spawn of Chris. A Trapper. There's the person down here at the bottom. And then this whole thing right here is a Trapper that's actually coming down on him. It's kind of hard to make out. A Vargule. A Veggie Pygmy Chief. A Woodward. A Yith-hound. A Yuan-ti Anathema. A Yuan-ti Mind Whisperer. A Yuan-ti Nightmare Speaker. And a Yuan-ti Pitmaster. And that's pretty much all the cards in here. The vast majority of these cards have artwork for them. Very little of it is ever reused, but there's still those occasional cards that you pop up that are completely lacking in artwork at all. When it comes to these cards are actually extremely useful. What is useful about them is if you have, say, multiple monsters, you can easily pull out multiple monsters, set them on the table, and get out a sheet to write down, say, like the initiative order, how much HP, if you rolled HP, stuff like that. Any important details about that specific monster. And you have the basic stats right here for them. So you can use one of these cards for one or more of those monsters. So like you have multiple, you got 3 of these guys. And one of these guys. You can easily have both of these cards out on the table. You can read them, provided you have good eyes, because that is actually fairly small text. If you turn the resolution up all the way, it should come up clear. And you can have one or more sheets that have all your variables attached to them, and you don't have to flip back and forth in your monster manuals or your Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes or Volo's Guide to Monsters or Monsters of Multiverse or Fizban's Dragons or whatever book you're using for a bunch of creatures. You can actually build out nice complex combats where you have literally more than 3 or 4 different creatures, and it is actually reasonable to do so. Whereas if you're operating out of a book or something, trying to flip through multiple pages of a book, going back and forth for all the features, that is going to take up time. And ever so often you'll be like flipping through the book and oops, a sheet of paper falls out or something like that. And you have to go hunting for the creature you were just using a moment ago. So I definitely say these cards are actually quite useful for the specific purpose of making your combats flow easier, and makes it easier for you to assemble more complex monster party compositions to pit against your opponents. That way you have a more interesting ordeal for your players. So these cards, I definitely give them like a 3.75 star or 4-star situation. There is a few little details, like the text is a little on the small side, and occasionally they'll have the wrong page number, because they'll oftentimes even write on the card as well, they'll note the page number that the monster goes to. So very few of the cards will occasionally have an error on them where it lists the page before the monster or the 2 pages after the monster or something like that. But anyways, they're otherwise pretty good, other than the lack of artwork on some of them. And the artwork is nice because if you have a monster you want to show a player, you can always hold up the card and say, this is what you are seeing. And if you want to, you can block the name out or something like that. Or, as a game master or dungeon master, you could look at the image of the card and you can roughly describe what you players would be seeing in case that they do not know what it is, okay? And that's also a very good direction to go. You kind of see this weird cow with like a mace on its tail, and it has a really long neck, and its face is all weird, but instead of having horns, it has tusks. And the players are like, I do not know what that is, or I know what that is, but does my character know what that is? Well, I would roll nature or arcana for that. In Pathfinder 2nd edition, it is very specific. You have certain skills that are tied to, like, hey, for this type of creature you roll history, for this type of creature you roll religion, for this type, so forth. So it's a lot more smooth in that system to go along with that. But the easy option is nature, Nature and arcana. If it's a magical creature, call it arcana. If it's non-magical, you can go with nature. So I would definitely, if you really want to make your dungeon mastering easier, I would definitely pick up these cards. These are the official cards produced by Gale Force 9 for Wizards of the Coast. So there you go. There is, as far as I know, there is no plans or news of there being anything in the lines of a Monsters of the Multiverse of Madness deck. And for me, really, I don't really care if they don't make that deck. But if they do, I will buy it, just so I can do a review of it. Just so I can literally tell you, hey, this is a duplication of 2 other books. It's a large pile of cards. Okay? If you enjoy these videos, please leave a like on them and consider subscribing to the channel. If you dislike these videos, leave a dislike on them and tell me why in the comments below. If there's any more videos you want to see more of, please tell me in the comments below. And have a delightful day, a nice night, a wonderful week, and a magnificent month. And see you next time.